Hey traders, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about Vinco Ventures, ticker symbol BBIG. Now, this is about to be one of my longest videos on this stock. There is a lot to cover here. I'm going to start off by going over the SEC filings that came out on Friday, break those down. I'm not going to go too deep into detail with that. I'm just going to kind of give you the main takeaway from that. After that, I'm going to go over the other news that happened on Friday with the closing of the Lomotive transaction, as well as the news that came out this morning that we struck a deal with Universal Music. And I'm going to explain what that means for the stock. After that, I'm going to go into price targets. For the first time, now that we have much more details about the merger and what's going on, I will be laying out both a realistic price target and an optimistic price target that I believe BBIG should achieve within the next month or so. And finally, as always, I'm going to break down the charts going over key levels, key supports, and more, so we know how to best play this stock moving forward. So without any further ado, leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get started. Okay, so starting with the SEC filings that came out on Friday, we saw two big filings from Vinco Ventures. First, we got this S1 in the morning, and after that, we got the 8K that was just clarifying some things in the S1, and this had to pretty much just deal with the outstanding warrants that Vinco Ventures has in order to kind of go through with the merger and create this newly formed company in which all the Zash subsidiaries become a part of Vinco. They had to first clear up the current warrants on Vinco Ventures. That's exactly what happened. You are welcome to read through these reports that are available on the SEC website and on Vinco's own website. There is a lot of jargon. It's pretty technical to read through, but nevertheless, it's good information to know. However, the main takeaway from this, which was summed up perfectly by the Twitter account Dilution Tracker, is that there's going to be some dilution now that essentially the warrants need to be cleared. So here's essentially what it boils down to. We have 120 million right now at $4 a share that can be converted within the next month. And then also there's going to be 32.7 million full ratchet warrants moving forward that can start to be exercised and converted into common stock starting in November. So right now, within the next month, we could see more dilution, 120 million at $4 a share. That translates to 30 million additional shares could be added into BBIG's public float. However, this part we do not have to worry about in the short to intermediate term. The earliest that it would be exercised and kind of lead to more dilution of the stock would be November. So that is relatively positive news. And it also gave way for BBIG to make its next morning announcement, something that's definitely much more positive for the stock. And that's that we finally saw the closing of the Lomotive transaction, and BBIG gets one step closer to fully finishing its merger with Zash Global Media. So as you guys can see here, July 23rd, 2021, BBIG, Vinco Ventures, a leader in selective acquisitions and leveraging new market opportunities, is pleased to announce the closing of the Lomotive Private Limited acquisition, which owns the Lomotive short-form video platform through their joint venture entity, ZVV Media. This acquisition makes ZVV Media a subsidiary of Vinco Ventures, one of the most powerful global short-form media companies in the marketplace. So here we have it. Zash and Vinco Ventures working together, finally getting 100% of Lomotive. This is positive news for the stock. This is what our entire bullish thesis is based on, adding Lomotive to Vinco Ventures portfolio, having Lomotive be, the biggest rival to TikTok and continuing to grow and continue to take over markets that, currently TikTok is not capitalizing on. This is an extreme positive for the stock. I know we've been waiting a long time. There's been a lot of delays and, promises with dates being pushed back later and later. But here we have it. We finally have it on paper. Lomotive is now going to be under Vinco Ventures' umbrella. But on top of that, this morning, we also saw some news come out. It's kind of rare to have a weekend, news drop. However, this is also something that I'm sure is going to get a lot more investors pumped out about the stock heading into tomorrow's trading session. we see that Universal Music has struck a licensing deal with Lemotive as the major music companies look to social media as a budding revenue source. And the agreement gives Lemotive users access to thousands of songs by some of the top Universal Music artists. And this is ultimately just going to help Lemotive compete with TikTok even more, even better. Really not much else to discuss. Their financial terms were not disclosed, so unfortunately we can't really break this down more. However, this is definitely a positive. This definitely shows that Lemotive is continuing to grow and continuing to compete with TikTok. And like I said, long term for Vinco Ventures, this is what we want to see. But that's pretty much all I have when it comes to going over the news. Now, for the first time after, covering the stock for 2 months, let's get into price targets, because now we have a lot more to work with compared to what we had a month ago or 2 months ago. So starting off with just some general information to understand before I break down the price targets, we currently have a public float of 35 million shares. However, now with the S1 that was filed on Friday, we do know that the company has the ability to dilute 30 million more shares in the next month. And we know that because they said that they're going to be selling $120 million worth at $4 a share. So that's just quick math, and it translates to 30 million shares. We also know that the current market cap for Vinco Ventures is 35 million shares times 323 per share, which is $113 million. And also, neither of these price targets that I'm about to do assume a short or gamma squeeze, although the stock currently has potential to do both. And in the very end of this video, I'm going to kind of break that down very quickly and show you why I believe there's potential for both a short squeeze and a gamma squeeze. But now let's hop into the first price target, the realistic price target. And in this realistic price target, Vinco is going to issue all 30 million additional shares, which is going to bring the public float to 65 million shares. It's going to add the current public float of 35 million shares plus their ability to dilute 30 million more. So that's going to bring us to that total of 65 million. After that, merger is going to officially close with Zash. And so Vinco is going to receive 10% of the new company. Now, this is a big kind of item of confusion and contest, because we haven't really gotten any communication of what Vinco is going to receive from this merger deal. I kind of really haven't spent much time covering it. I've kind of been under the impression that Vinco was going to receive a lot more, especially, Vinco shareholders were going to get a pretty good deal here, given that Zash is not a publicly traded company. However, we did see Will Mead, a big, social media stock influencer, former Wall Street guy. He said that the company is going to own about 10% of all its newly acquired entities. That number hasn't been confirmed anywhere. However, he is privy to certain information, being such a big Wall Street guy. I've heard estimates anywhere between Vinco receiving 10% ownership of the newly merged company to 30%. So we're going somewhere in that range. But for the realistic price target, I'm going to assume that Will Mead knows what he's talking about, and that at the end of the day, when the merger closes, once Zash becomes a part of Vinco, once Lemotive becomes fully a part of Vinco Ventures, Vinco is the current Vinco Ventures shareholders, and the insiders and the institution are going to receive 10% ownership of the newly reformed and merged Vinco Ventures company. So that makes Vinco's fair market valuation currently sitting at $500 million. So we get this by taking 10% of Gemini's total valuation for Zash and Lemotive, which was around $4 to $6 billion, and we're going to use $5 billion as the average. And so we're taking 10% because we're assuming 10% ownership. And so $5 billion times 0.1 is going to be $500 million, meaning that the fair market valuation for Vinco currently is $500 million. And the fair value price for BBIG stock adjusted for dilution is going to be this valuation, the fair market valuation, $500 million divided by the total amount of the float, which is, we're assuming, is going to be 65 million shares if they do the full dilution. And that brings our target price to $769. Okay, that is a very realistic fair value price of what BBIG stock should be worth in the next month or two. Okay, and just pointing just how undervalued the stock is, even if we kind of assume, this very realistic outcome where we're only getting 10% ownership and we're getting all these shares diluted, we're still only sitting at 42% of fair value, okay? Because the current market cap adjusted for dilution would be 65 million shares times 323 a share, which would be 209 million. That is well below the 500 million fair market valuation. But now let's go into our optimistic price target. So in the optimistic price target, pretty much the same logic, same math. We're just changing the numbers a bit. Okay, so first off, we're going to assume that Vinco holds off on any additional share dilution at the moment, and that keeps the public float at 35 million shares, which it currently is. Then the merger with Zash officially closes. And like I said, there's no official number as to what percentage of ownership Vinco Ventures is going to receive, but I'm going to assume 20% because, like I said, I've been looking everywhere. I'm seeing 10% to 30%. So I'm going to take the average there. I'm going to assume 20% ownership instead of the 10% projected by Will Mead. And that's going to make Vinco's fair market valuation sitting at $1 billion. So we're going to do the same math here, but instead of 10%, we're going to assume 20% ownership. So $5 billion is what, the company would be valued at as a whole. And then the 20% stake brings that Vinco Ventures' current valuation, fair market valuation, is $1 billion. So that makes the fair value price for BBIG stock $1 billion divided by the 35 million shares, which would be the public float. And that brings our total share price to 28.57. So if we don't see any dilution, and if Vinco Ventures, receives a little bit more ownership than what is currently being projected by the Wall Street guys, well, all of a sudden, we're taking a look at a stock that could go up 600%, 700%, 800%. So this is very, very, very exciting, and it shows you just how undervalued the stock is. Continue to keep your eyes out on two things and adjust your PTs accordingly. First off, watch out for any additional dilution. Just continue to check and see what the public float on the stock is, okay? And watch if it goes up. If it goes up, obviously, your price target needs to come down. And also wait to see, what this number is going to be, how much, the current Vinco Ventures shareholders and institutions and insiders are going to receive of the merged company once the merger closes. I'm very interested to find that number out. But now with price targets out of the way, let's hop right into the chart. And the chart, especially on Friday, was very, very active. Okay, so we got all this news in the pre-market. We saw the S1 filed. Then we saw that the Lomotive transaction has concluded, led to a huge gap up in the morning. However, first of all, market was kind of slow on Friday. We didn't really see a lot of things holding. It was just kind of a bad market as a whole, but also, just a lot of unanswered questions with the S1, with the overall merger not being announced to close yet. And that essentially just brought a lot of sellers into the market, clearing out. BBIG could not hold this gain that they had in the morning. And, we just kind of started to find ourselves in a bit of a downtrend. We broke out of it, tried to reestablish an uptrend. Unfortunately, the volume wasn't there. And so we just kind of, bled out slowly towards the end of the day. Nothing really to go off of in the afternoon. It was pretty boring, low volume. But all that being said, here we are at 323, and, it just doesn't really make any sense considering what the fair value of the stock should be. That all being said, let's take a look at our indicators. Our first indicator, as always, is going to be this yellow line, the VWAP. We are sitting well below it. That is a bearish signal heading into tomorrow's trading session. However, that all being said, we did get that major news today with Universal Music closing that deal with Lomotive. So that could lead to a major bump that could take this way above the VWAP. And also, there's so much news and so much going on with this stock. Now that people have the weekend to kind of digest all this information, we could see a complete kind of reversal of trend here come tomorrow, come pre-market. So, this is bearish. However, take that with a grain of salt. However, that being said, now let's go on to the moving averages. The moving averages are indeed giving off bearish signals. We did break above all these three moving averages I'm about to talk about in the morning. Unfortunately, none of them were able to hold, and that includes the 9-day EMA at 346, the 21-day EMA at 367, and the 50-day moving average at 376. As a result, short to intermediate term, this stock is currently reading very bearish. That being said, like I said, anything can change. The stock is clearly very volatile. And so if we do get above these levels, all of a sudden we're going to be very bullish short to intermediate term. We could see a lot more momentum and volume return to the stock. So pay attention to these levels right now. Unfortunately, we are sitting below them. However, we are still ultimately sitting above our 200-day moving average at 265. That is bullish. That means longer term, the stock outlook is still very bullish, which it should be. But now that being said, final indicator to take a look at is going to be the RSI. And as you guys can see, RSI really hasn't changed much, even though the stock has been volatile last week. What we're seeing right now is just that we are consolidating in this neutral to oversold zone. And because of that, once, we do kind of see that break above the moving averages, once we return to bullish momentum, we could start to see the stock move a lot. Okay. We have a lot of room to go here. So that is a positive sign. But now let's hop into our key levels heading into tomorrow. So we're going to start off on the support side. Right now, we are kind of sitting in this no man's land. We established some intraday support at around 326 on Friday. Unfortunately, weren't able to hold that. However, we do have a strong support zone starting right here at 318. That's going to be a spot where I feel like a lot of buyers are going to be buying into if they have the chance. And also 305 is kind of the lower edge of that support zone with an absolute lower bound of the support zone right in this like 292 to 285 area. If that 292 area breaks, unfortunately, there is going to be a lot more downside here. We are going to be seeing a much longer term downtrend established if we can't hold 292. But like I said, I do suspect that a lot of buyers are going to be stepping in at these levels if we do test them. And also when it comes to support, as always, I need to say this. If you are looking to add to your position or open a position, always try to target these support zones. By doing so, you're going to minimize your risk and maximize your upside. But speaking of upside, we have some resistance levels to talk about. So first one's going to be right here at 330. That's a big historical level. Above that, expect a test of 345. And if we do get above 345 into this 345, 360 zone, that's where things are going to start to get interesting. We are going to start to decide whether we want to break above these moving averages or stay below them. And if we do break above them, well, then we have nothing but upside ahead. If we get above this 376 level, expect a retest of $4, and above $4, things could definitely start to get interesting, especially with the gamma squeeze potential and the short squeeze potential that this stock currently holds. So watch out for that. First off, we need to get above 330 and 345. But like I said, after that, things definitely start to open up on the upside. Final thing to take a look at when taking a look at charts and technicals is going to be the volume. So yes, big volume on Friday, especially in the pre-market and morning when there was all the excitement about the news. However, it died off. And what we're seeing right now is that these volume numbers aren't really enough to get BBIG going. Yes, it's well above the average. However, like I said, we've seen many times where Vinco Ventures has these 50 million shares trading days or even 100 million shares trading days. And we need to see one of those to really blow the stock apart. We're going to have more and more news on the horizon with this merger closing at any day now. So that's what you got to pay attention to. Once we finally have this volume and are able to hold this volume throughout the day, then this stock is going to start to see some positive price action. So pay attention to the volume. It's going to be your best indicator of what comes next. Finally, we're just going to quickly go over short squeeze and gamma squeeze potential. So short squeeze potential, this stock has been heavily shorted. The shorts are very aggressive here. It's a big reason why we're seeing these sell-offs even when we have positive news. The shorts are doing everything they can to keep the stock price down. And with the short float percent of 25, we're currently seeing very, very big potential for a short squeeze, especially if we can re-break above that $4 with volume coming off some positive news. Shorts are going to be in big trouble. They're going to have to cover, and this could send the stock price even higher. Furthermore, we currently also see massive potential for a gamma squeeze. Taking a look at October 15 calls, we are seeing huge amounts being dumped into these $5 calls and $7.50 calls. These are big out of the money calls with lots of volume. And if BBIG does get that rise up to those levels, it's going to cause institutions to hedge their positions, cover their positions, and ultimately gamma squeeze, which will send the stock price even higher. So pay attention to that. That's going to be fun to watch out for. But let me know now what you think happens this week. I'm very interested to hear your guys' feedback as always. If you have any questions for me, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up. If you want to